What is like the partly the reason could be see our Mahabharata says na like there are 100 reasons for Karna's death. Right? So many things have come together. So see, like beating the existing players is not a simple job. Like Hyundai, Hyundai is well established. Then Maruti is well established. Then unless unless you come with some disruptor kind of technology, competing on routine things is not so simple. For example, Elon Musk has come with a totally a disruptor kind of technology in the form of this, Model S or Model 3 kind of. Whereas these people are still, they are still in the old kind of technologies. Then part of the reason could be that the way they have see, the mother company itself is in not in good shape. Ford. So naturally, when things are not going well, see the shareholders' pressure is too much in America. See, unlike Japanese, Americans are very, very tough guys with respect to performance. They say like if you are not doing well, if you are not getting a ROI of say 20% or whatever the threshold value that they have kept, uh, they might have that way, right? Say for example, when they have found that they are not getting good returns on their investment, they thought like let us say quits. See, this kind of attitude is there for every American company. They don't keep on dragging the firms when they are loss making. Either they rescue it for some time, like for example, General Motors, the parent company was in doldrums, so Obama has given around $5 billion of rescue package for General Motors. But see what happened. The American version has survived, but the same kind of help they can't expect in India, so they have quitted India, General Motors. See, similarly, like before, their expectations of say growth and everything has not been realized. So they're not like let us say quits. So, and the Indian market has become too competitive. There are so many players. So getting a making oneself successful in Indian market is not so easy unless you have some kind of disruptor kind of technology in the form of Tesla Motors. Because now there is a lot of craze for Tesla Motors and people would like to buy that, but not routine stuff. I don't know whether I have satisfied that reply. With that reply, is it okay? No, no, let me start our formal lecture, right? Uh, So anyway, this we have covered in the last class, and then we were discussing about this design of organ structures, right? So here, what we have seen is in the last class is that in what is the underlying core concept in organ structure. So design of organ structure is a division of labor. You are applying division of labor principle so that each group or department will do is specialized in certain particular set of activities. Like for example, like um, some of the most popular ways of uh, dividing the activities is in terms of functions, like marketing, finance, production, then R&D, HR kind of stuff. So and then we have seen like now the most of the organizations are very complex these days. Whether you take BHEL or ITC or L&T, these are all they are huge companies like Tata Sons, Tata Motors. Like see, Tata Sons have a presence in 90 industry verticals from salt. So it is a very complex organization. Similarly, like so most of the Indian companies like Reliance, all these are multi-product, multi-plant kind of activities they are involved in. See, Reliance Industries they're encouraging into they're entering into so many areas, right? In fact, there was sometimes there was a rumor saying that they are into even barber shops, starting their own barber shops. So we don't know. So like now, uh, so how to appropriately structure a organization? So what should be the criteria? So we said like one could be based on numbers. Based on numbers, that is normally followed in military type for organizational structures like Indian Army. Like anyway, Indian Army also has changed now. Like they don't purely go by numbers; they go by functions also, like logistics, then armory, military engineers corps. Uh, so there are so many divisions now, even in military also. So here, what I mean to say is, uh, designing RN structures is not so simple. And one point you should keep in mind is no RN structure is permanent. It should change every organization, every enterprise keep changing its RN structure depending on the environment. If you don't change your organ structure, you will automatically die. Just like a cell, if it doesn't, just like any living matter, if it doesn't change with the what you call environment, it will die. That's why, in fact, like bigness is no guarantee for survival. Bigness is not a guarantee for, like for example, in the when the an asteroid hit the Earth around 17 million years ago, most of the dinosaurs have died, but small things like squirrel, cockroaches, they could survive because either because of the smallness or nimbleness or the adaptability. Like for example, cockroach has a lot of adaptive capacities. So similarly, any organ structure is a permanent entity. See, every 4 or 5 years, organizations again look back and review their organ structure, whether this this organ structure is responding to the environment properly or not. Sometimes they merge the departments, then sometimes they close certain departments. Then, say for example, uh, previously ISRO doesn't have a marketing division. Now they have started a marketing division department, even though it is a government of India company, ISRO. But they want to go into a commercial way where they want to generate their own resources by offering certain services like launching some uh, customers in Indian private sector, or sometimes even other countries requirements with regard to satellite launch. Like for example, like recently in one single launch, ISRO has launched around 52 satellites, small satellites. It is a kind of, so that means sometimes you have to create a department in the light of changed circumstances. Sometimes you may have to close the department because it doesn't have any meaning. So no organ structure is permanent. That you have to keep in mind. So here, like anyway, we have seen in the last class, you divide the activities based on their commonality. Like it can be in terms of numbers, time, functions, products, processes, customers, distribution channels, projects, right? Projects is the kind. What kind of projects you are handling? Like for example, like L&T, you take, maybe they organize their activity based on the kind of project they handle, right? Similarly, coming to span of control, like it is the number of subordinates an executive can supervise. That is the definition of span of control. That executive may be like maybe a foreman or a general manager, or even the top boss of the organization, like CEO or president or director in our case. So you take NIT Warangal, the span of control director is say around 14 or 15. Whereas if you take our own mechanical HOD, he has a large span of control. Like around 40 faculty members report to him. Even though for convenience sake, he has divided, for his own internal purpose, he divided mechanical department into, say, 4 sections. Like for example, the production engineering section, design, thermal, and workshops. So that means, so here, when you have very large span of control, like for example, head of the department of mechanical engineering has a large span of 48. Plus, you have the clerks and the what do you call, anyway, office staff. But again, they have divided that to effectively manage this large span of control. They have divided this 48 faculty into 3 divisions. So, production engineering division, design division, then we have thermal division, and then we have workshops. So, anyway, workshop is now merged with production engineering section. So, there is no separate department. So, now you have only 3. So, that means the 3, and then for the administrative convenience, he has created a further, he introduced a concept called section heads. So production engineering section has a one section head, then a design section, then thermal. So what we normally people do now, when there is a very large span of control, like 48, they again divide into sub departments so that the span of control comes down a bit. So for most of the activities, what department head will do is, if for simple things, he will call the section heads and say, give the directions. You in turn talk to your colleagues. But officially, our head of the department has a large span of control of 48, because we have 48 faculty in mechanical department plus 2 people in the office, right? Like a clerk and attender. So here, so and here again, why we have such a large span of control? Because here basically educational institution, here to certain extent we have a very simple stable environment. Whenever you have stable environments, when the product doesn't change very vigorously, then naturally you can have large span of control. So here span of control also depends on the level of the organization structure. Like at the foreman level, it can be as high as 30 or 40, whereas at the top level, the span of control can be 5 to 7. So, and there are again exceptions to every rule in management. So these are the guidelines, 5 to 7 at the top, and then at the bottom level 30. But I have told you in the last class, like Pope has a very, very, very large span of control of some, because anyway, Pope, like the Roman Catholic Church, has a very, very simple, what I call, it is a kind of stable organization. And most of the bishops who report to Pope, they have a lot of autonomy. They need not report. They need not send daily reports to the Pope. Right? Occasionally, maybe once in 6 months or 1 year, they give respective status about their local operations. So, for example, but normally, if you look at the general trends, what is happening is more, more and more organizations are tending towards span of control, because if you have less span of control now, then you find this kind of organization structure. Like for example, if you have less span of control, like if you see here, this is a very binary tree kind of arrangement. So each level only 2 subordinates are there. Then what happens? For the same number of people, the number of levels is going to be very high. I told you now, like if you take a complex organization like General Motors, who have operations in say 70 to 80 uh, countries, sometimes in their lifetime, a worker, he never encounters his boss here. He doesn't see, and sometimes he says, if you ask the General Motor employee, like who is our CEO, he will say, I don't know. They are far away. Like in General Motors, it can be as high as 20 levels. Right? Whereas, but most of the people, like now, if you look at most of the modern organizations, they want flat type of organization structure. This one. This is good, preferable. See, it again depends on the dynamics of the organization structures. So here, see, like here at the bottom level, you have very large span of control. Like for example, uh, in fact, one of the management gurus says the most ideal organ structure should have only 2 levels. Should have only 2 levels. And this is normally, like for example, in NIT Warangal, we have around, say, 3 levels or 4 levels at the max. You don't have, it's not a very, because ours is a autonomous institute, and then we don't have too many levels there. Yeah, maybe 3 to 4. 4, you can say. Like you have deans in between heads, and here it is not a very well structured arrangement here in the NIT. So here, so why we prefer uh, only 2 levels? This is what we people say the ideal kind of. This is the most ideal one. Like somebody said, somebody is aware of Jubin Mehta. Anybody knows about Jubin Mehta? Hmm? Any guess? See, Jubin Mehta is a Philharmonic Orchestra director. Like he was Israeli Philharmonic Orchestra. Like so, one famous management guru said it should be something like a Philharmonic Orchestra, like where a single person will be managing around 16 simultaneously musicians. 60 musicians simultaneously, only through gestures. He will not shout. He will have only very, the boss and the subordinate are so much to each other that the boss uses some kind of a pattern like this. He will say like this, like this. That gesture itself is understood by the most of the musicians. You need not, like, if your communication ability and everything is, and the people are very motivated, you don't need like a complex, or like 2 levels is good enough. And in fact, with computers, communication infrastructure, you can afford to have large span of control. Like because people have automated so many activities. So if you have a very beautiful ERP, enterprise resource planning software, ERP software like SAP or Oracle Business Suite. See, there are so many fantastic MIS, management information systems, like ERP software like SAP, and then Oracle Business Suite, JD Edwards. You know, these softwares, enterprise resource softwares, are simplifying matters. So you don't need so much hinder. Like for example, here in a tall organization, sometimes this guy at the middle level, he may be doing a simple postman job. Whatever reports that comes to him, he will transfer to the boss, and whatever the instructions that he gets from the boss, it is transferred to the lower level. Except for postman job, I don't think he is adding any value to the. But for the limitation on the span of control. So here, whereas in this, when you have very excellent IT infrastructure, computers, communication, like see now you have gigabit kind of bandwidth. You can video chat with the boss, and then you can time. See, everything is now electronic, like paperless, and like what now the latest mantra in design of org structure is they are saying lean and mean organization. You should be lean and mean. That means don't have too many people in your organization, because one of the most difficult resource to manage in a industry setup is uh, what you call uh, is the human resource. So mean is the, so here what I mean to say is, if you can manage with large span of control, that is better. Okay. And but for that, your subordinate should have lot of autonomy, they should be empowered to take decisions. See, they should not ask for everything to the boss. In that case, then you have to go for short span of control, very short span of control. If you want to have long span of, then your subordinate should be well educated, well motivated, and they should have you should decentralize most of the things. They should not be looking for the boss for everything. In that case, only this flat type of organ structure works. So here, as I said, like in Jubin Mehta case, see, he will not shout or do anything. He will say just he will say like this, like this. A baton will be there. Like here, I am showing the electronic pen, but in his case, there is a small steel baton. He will just, by seeing the gestures of this conductor, automatically all the machines will understand, right? So if you take a philharmonic orchestra, there are only two levels: director and the musician. That's all, and they do it so fantastically, right? You have the Israeli New York Philharmonic Orchestra like that. So then, so now coming to third aspect of in the design of organ structures is authority and responsibility, and so like this again, this has to be properly designed into the organ structure. Like normally, the highest authority, so the highest authority in an organ structure is the mostly CEO, right? So see, if you take a typical organ structure, if you take public limited company like where their shares are traded in the stock exchange. To take a public limited like Reliance, Tata Motors, the highest authority is the above the CEO, but above CEO there is one more topmost authority for every company. What is that?
Managing director.
Managing director is again another name. See, people call the some
Promoter.
Huh?
Board of directors.
Board of directors. So above the CEO or managing director or president, you have the board of directors. They meet quarterly, once in every quarter. Like for example, NIT Warangal also has a kind of board of directors, but here in our case we call it as board of governors, right? So like a director, he works under the direction of board of governors, or like any CEO of any company will be indirectly governed by the directions coming from the board of directors. And above the board of directors, who is the topmost authority?
Founder.
Chairperson.
Founder.
Huh?
Founder of the company.
Founder, even for founders, there is no guarantee that they will be permanently there. See, once upon a time, the founder CEO of Apple Computers was shunted out. Steve Jobs was, they said like, the board of directors, they said like, you fellow fit. But again, the same board of directors have called him inside because they couldn't manage without him. So for founder, there is no guarantee that he will be permanently there. The board of directors thinks that, or the even shareholders, actually sitting above board of director is the shareholders. And say shareholders are interchangeable. Whoever has maximum number of shares, they will call the shots. Right? And how the shareholders are getting this kind of power is again they are dictated by the regulations, regulatory authority like SEBI, Security Exchange Board of India. So there is a like and the anyway topmost authority in a democratic country is our president because he again there are again checks and balances. Like president means it doesn't mean like he can do whatever he wants. He is guided by prime minister and he is guided by the Supreme Court justice. So there are so many interconnected things. But what I'm going to say is authority can be delegated, but responsibility cannot be delegated. You can delegate, but still, if your boss questions you, you cannot say that I have delegated that responsibility to my subordinate. You are still answerable. Whereas authority can be delegated, but to make the matter simpler for your subordinates. Because sometimes authority means need not be in terms of financial approvals. It can be even at the level of subject level authority or personal authority. Personal authority means personal level kind of authority means sanctioning leaves for the subordinate or recommending increments for his subordinate or recommending leaves or writing annual confidential report for the subordinate. These are all non-financial authority. And see, authority means it is power to take decisions, right? So it can be financial authority means I was telling in the one of my previous classes now, like director has authority to sanction any budget which is less than a crore. More than a crore, he, he has to take the approval of the board of governors. In fact, board of governors also sometimes they can't take every decision themselves. They are in turn guided by the Ministry of HRD.
MHRD.
Anyway, now unfortunately that HRD name is removed. Now they are simply calling it as Ministry of Education. So there is nothing like human resource development now. Like now NIT Warangal operates under Ministry of Education. So ministry again is under the control of cabinet minister, and cabinet minister is under the control of prime minister. Prime minister is again under the direction of president of India. Anyway, see that is how like the hierarchy of authority passes. So at every level, certain financial powers are, for example, whether we actually president has more powers, not the prime minister. Prime minister is there, even though most of the time, even in India also, president is powerful. He is the first citizen of India because like all the army chiefs, they don't report to, even though they may be reporting to prime minister, but when it comes to issuing executive authority, only president can say like, you let us go against Pakistan or Bangladesh for war. So like that executive authority, like so
Sir, by the book it is president, but by the practical it is prime minister.
yeah, in a way
Due to
like
politics.
uh, not only politics, like administration also. day-to-day administration will be looked after by Prime Minister. Like cabinet approvals for his cabinet decisions is there. But see, only when he has to, Prime Minister has to issue some emergency orders, then it is done through issuing some ordinance. And that ordinance issue can be done only with the approval of the president. Later, they get ratified through parliamentary resolution. So here, authority and responsibility, actually what people say, generally the thumb rule is authority and responsibility should be commensurate to each other. That means don't give anybody too much authority without any responsibility. And the vice versa is also wrong. Giving a lot of responsibility but not giving any authority for that guy. So authority and responsibility should be commensurate to each other. Give the responsibility at the same time, give him certain authority so that people will listen to him. Right? Why all the faculty in a department listen to the head of the department? Because he is it is the head of the department who is going to sanction the leaves or writing his annual confidential report. See, there are so many things like sanctioning certain small budgets to purchase certain things. Right? So that is authority and responsibility should be commensurate. Like here again, in a line and staff, like you see, you have different kinds of line authority, staff authority, functional authority. Right? See, in a line and staff type of organ structure, which we have discussed previously, like you have line authority. And again, staff authority means he is a kind of he has the authority to advise the line people, like quality control, implementing ISO 9000. It is the responsibility of the quality control department, which is a staff department, because they cannot directly issue orders, but you may sometimes give some kind of authority, like for example, like functional authority. That means for a particular function, let that fellow take the decision. All right. See, there is a bit of haziness between the difference between staff and functional authority. But what we mean to say is, whereas the general understanding is that staff authority means it is an advisory role where you are supposed to listen to that guy. Whether how you implement, again, you can do your own way. But whereas functional authority means, with respect to that function, you have to listen to that guy, like finance, HR, or purchasing certain things. So you have to listen to the stores officer. You can't just directly go to the market and buy. You have to route your request through stores. Right? It is a staff department. It is not part of if you take. So there are certain departments who they're not part of the main activity, but they are supporting activity. Like for example, if you take NIT Warangal, games department is a supporting department. It is only to help the students to have some kind of physical activity. But see, and games department, they're staff department. They are not part of the line, right? They don't offer any degrees. Neither you get any credits if you participate in games and those things, except when you reach final year and you want to have a gold medal, all round gold medal, then they may look at your sports achievements, other activities at that case. So like games department is a kind of staff department, supporting department for a particular activity. Similarly, like hostel administration. It is a staff department, right? Whereas line departments are all the engineering departments. Okay. Now coming to channels of communication. So, like anyway, people say like there should be very good channels of communication. That means there should not be any confusion or haziness with regard to. So normally you communicate through orders, monthly targets, you share your budgetary plans. Similarly, you try to get the feedback from the lower level, like getting daily production volumes from the each of the departments, like you like how much expenditure is happening. So like this, channels of communication should also be good. In fact, like these channels of communication should try to reduce the uncertainty in the people's mind. It should clarify. See, basically, every human being has a one basic weakness. That is, people love, they want information. Like, see, why rumors happen? Because uh, if there is no information, every human being has a habit of creating a rumor, and that rumor may come out of his own anxiety to know something. So that has to be avoided through having a beautiful channels of communication in the organization. That has to be designed into the organization infrastructure. Say, for example, if you take a, a world class company like Toyota, they have established beautiful channels of communication where annually they get around 1.6 million sessions from each and every worker. The total number of sessions that they get is around 1.6 million sessions, almost like one session from every employee all over the world, to improve their production processes, improve their design, to improve their process efficiency. And they say what data people say is out of 1.6 million, around say 50-60% of them are worth their salt. So there is an incentive scheme how to, if there is a very beautiful solution, how we can, what are the kind of savings they are going to get, how to share that savings with the idea generator. So like that. So channels have communication. Like for example, these channels of communication should also be useful for like somebody is harassing somebody if he's feeling that he's being harassed by the boss. He should have some way to express his displeasure. So how that displeasure should be channeled? Is it the channel to the boss, or is it should be channeled to a particular committee where these redressals can be handled? So this channels of communication is also very important part of designing organ structures, right? So here, and then we have flexibility. When it comes to flexibility means like as I told you, no organ structure is permanent. These organ structure, for example, just now we have seen, like now Ford India is winding up its operations because it has found that it is not economically viable to maintain their division in India. So they are cutting down their operations. They say like they are closing their plants, but they may maintain a bit of small skeletal skeletal infrastructure in the form of, because they have already established more around 170 dealers all over India. Uh, all these 170 dealers are crying now. They say like we have invested 2,000 rupees, 2,000 crores, and you are leaving us high and dry. So, so what they want, even though Ford might have decided to quit India, but they may maintain a small skeleton in uh, unit, like where they say like we are not completing closing, but they say like we may continue our operations, but on a smaller scale, and only bring in some semi knockdown kits and then assemble it here and then give it to the customers. So when they, that means, what we mean by flexibility means it is our ability to have that option, close or start a new division. And whenever you do this kind of things now, there is a bit of human imbalance. Like people might cry, saying that, "Sir, I have you heard." See, when you are, say, for example, when you are closing, like a Ford has decided to close the Indian operations, naturally, the CEO of India operation, he may have to go back and occupy a very, very insignificant post in the US, and that creates a bit of dissatisfaction. So, how to handle that kind of dissatisfaction? How to, either you give a golden handshake and say like we are closing, whether you want to quit or join join back in our old parent department with a less salary, that kind of, some kind of optional exit points and compensations has to be built into the design of art. So that is what I mean by flexibility. So how to, when you close a department, how that has to be handled, right? Now coming to the last point, load and work balance. So here what we do is, when we are dividing the work, you divide the work. See, central concept in design of functional, you are appropriately dividing the work and then coordinating those set of activities using these authority and responsibility channels and then the, but here in work balance, so in work balance, what you do is you try to see that everyone is equally loaded. That means equally loaded means everyone has a same kind of work, same level of work. Say, for example, if you take NIT Warangal, again, certain departments are very, very busy. They have, maybe they have a faculty shortage, maybe they have, whereas certain departments they have a bit of leisure. Like for example, science departments or games department, they don't have so much activity. But so depending on the activity, you allocate the number of faculty there. So in physical education, you have only say 3 or 4 people. That's all, right? Whereas if you take the most big department like mechanical and civil, you have 7 MTech programs, so many PhD scholars. Because here the mechanical department in NIT Warangal is itself looks like a mini college, a mini junior college. All right, so with sections and everything. So you have to always see like whether you are properly doing the load balance. So even in say for example, in our college, like academic department is overloaded, whereas the examination section may be underloaded. In fact, like before we became NIT Varangal, before we we used to be called as REC, that is Regional Engineering College. But there was some joke on REC means, that is they used to call it as a regular examination center, because in those days the academic schedule is so chaotic. In every month, some year examination happening, either mids and examinations, because there is no synchronization. See, nowadays you are seeing a lot of synchronization. In those days, because of some strike or Naxal problem, we used to have disrupted academic schedule. So now we don't see that. Now we have a very stable academic program. See, we should thank ourselves that in spite of COVID, we are still pulling on. Almost there is no delay, right? Fortunately, technology is helping us to continue our work. Probably, maybe at a not at a level of uh, online level, but at least we are able to sail through, right? So there is a bit of flexibility here for us. Okay. So anyway, so this is what about the design of organ structures. So we should try to see like everyone has a equal amount of workload. Then there should be flexibility channels. So now coming to say the coordinate function. So this is the third function of management. So it applies the principle, right? Like it is coordinating means like that the different departments, they should not be pulling the organization in different directions. Right? I told you, there is a traditional rivalry between production department and marketing department. Similarly, there is a kind of conflict between finance and marketing, because every marketing guy would like to give some kind of credit facility to his customer, but whereas finance department guy, he says no, you can't give credit to the customer, because finance department is worried about cash flows. Sometimes certain companies die because of lack of cash flows. So there is a conflict. How much credit one can give? So there should be a coordination between marketing department and finance department. Similarly, how much variety one can give to the customer? Again, it should be a trade-off between marketing and a production card. Right? So that's why this coordinating function ensures that different departments and groups work in synchronous. Therefore, the unity of action among the employees, groups, and department is imminent. It also brings harmony in carrying out different tasks and to achieve the organizational objectives efficiently. It is in the form of various committees, budgetary committee, merchandising committee, like that. So, budgetary committee is probably between where representatives from marketing, finance, and production people might be participating. And then similarly, merchandising committee, again, people from finance and marketing people might be involved. So whereas in the organizing function, you are dividing the work. Here in coordinating function, even though you have divided, but again, all of them should work in coordination so that they achieve the organizational objectives. So that unity should be brought in. So this is coordinating function. Then we have uh, then we have the directing function. The last but one, that is process of instructing, guiding, coaching, and then counseling, motivating, leading, and leading people in the organization to achieve its objectives. Outcome of this function is a high level of motivation and commitment from the employees. So esprit de corps, what I mean to say, there should be high level of esprit de corps. That means feeling proud about one company. Managers determine direction, state a clear vision for employees to follow, and help understand their role in achieving the outcomes. So here in directing function, we will be mainly dealing with what you call how to motivate people, how to give leadership, so that their efforts. So you should create a win-win situation. In directing function, again, you have to create a win-win situation where organization wins as well as individual wins. You should not be winning at the cost of employees' interests. Again, vice versa is also not true. Like you gain at the cost of organizational objectives, right? So you should be there should be a trade-off between individual aspirations and organizational objectives. So you should not making a lot of money at the cost of organization. Similarly, organization should not end up making a lot of productivity at the cost of harassing people. So there should be a bit of trade-off. All right. So for this, we have a lot of theories. The directing function, like under directing, what we are involved in, we are doing mainly two things. That is motivating and leading people. Right. So for this, so what we will do is tomorrow we will start with this motivation function, like how to motivate people. All right. So probably like tomorrow there might be some change in the my class. So uh, change in the time. I don't know. Is Kalyani is there?
Yes, I'm there.
Have you asked Professor Ravi Kumar?
Sir, I will inform you, sir. I will call you.
Ah, yeah. You tell me either tomorrow at between 8 to 9 or evening 4 to 5. 4 to 5. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay then. So we will meet tomorrow.